All right, and we're live. So, hey, thank you everyone for joining us. I'm Kyle Bernstein with Reinventing the Tattoo. We're here today with Shanghai Kate doing Bridging the Gap, learning all about the history of the tattoo industry, all the veterans that are in it, and just hearing their stories. So, thanks for joining us today, Kate.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah.
I don't know how you'll learn all about the history because
Let's try our best.
I'm learning. Well, as I write my book, I'm writing my book. The the history is huge.
Absolutely.
I don't know how to present it.
Yeah. Do you wanna start by just telling us a
I'll
bit of,
give it
like,
high spots.
start a bit about telling us where you got your start and who you were mentoring or apprenticing under and all that?
Well, first of all, I'll say that apprentice was a word that we never used. That we did. Nobody started getting apprenticed until probably the mid '90s. It was you just were broke in. You were
Right.
brought in um, from an old timer that you became friends with. You just sat next to them and you listened to them. That you earned their trust, and you did that by taking out their trash or, you know, drawing and showing them, just bugging them all the time. And that's how you got to start. Was getting brought in by an old timer. There were no apprentices ever, but my teacher, a ninja, was Sailor Jerry Collins from Hawaii, who was the traditional American traditional tattoo master, and he was a huge influence in my life and remains so. Um, Ed Hardy also was a gigantic figure for me. He was a great lubricator for my career. He brought me um, many opportunities and did many. I'm sorry, I'm getting these live
No worries, it's all good.
notices. I have to get rid of them. Um, he was a great mentor for me, and so and Zeke Owen is I can't ever forget Zeke. Zeke was the hardest man I ever met in tattooing, and it took a lot to get his validation and his friendship, but I managed to do that. And then I worked with Michael Malone and I started together documenting all these old timers in the New York area because we wanted to know everything about tattooing, and tattooing was illegal in New York during that time.
Right.
And so we decided to document everything we could about tattooing. And so we became pests to Smokey Nightingale and Huck Spalding and Tom DeVita and people that we became friends with, and just you know photographed a lot of them. And initially, we did a show at the Museum of American Folk Art about these legends, um, Paul Rogers, and uh, especially Huck and Sailor Jerry and Tom DeVita. And we took a lot of photographs, and we had we became involved with this show at the Museum of American Folk Art, and we were granted a room at that museum, and were allowed to present all the photographs that we had, or many of them, and we became sort of notable for doing that. I still have these photographs, and I'm trying to put them in a book. Uh, we became friends with them, and they helped us tremendously. They were colorful people. They were from the carnival. They they had really great stories, and so I loved them. I loved them. Always wanted to be a carny person because my grandparents were my early protectors and so forth, and so they they always took me to the carnivals and the sideshows because there was no television in the 40s and the 50s.
Yeah.
And so the best entertainment we could get was going to a carnival or a sideshow and looking at these oddities, and I learned that the oddities were people just like us, and uh, and so I was very comfortable talking to them and getting to know them, and so we were documenting them, and I was having a great time, and we when I became friends with the tattoo artists, I realized they lived that carnival life, that sideshow life, and it was very attractive to me because I've always been a rebel, and I've always been somebody who wanted to, live in a cage, going cross country with people who, you know, uh, tame snakes and horses and stuff. And
Right.
so I befriended them and realized that they were just like everybody too. And so I just went from there.
Very nice. So, how important was art in your life? Like, I know you were doing a lot of photography with all these people.
I can't hear you, darling.
Can you hear me okay now? Are we doing okay?
Yeah, I can hear you if you come
Okay.
closer.
Yeah. So, how important was art throughout your entire life? Because I know you were saying you were documenting a lot of the tattooists as well as the sideshow people. How important was it for you?
How busy? Well, I'm going to repeat your question because
Yeah.
I'm not sure I
How
heard it.
how important was art throughout your life?
Oh, very. I grew up drawing horses. I decided that I really wanted a horse when
Mhm.
I was a little girl. And so I manifested a pony when I was 5 years old by drawing horses all the time. And I just drew all the time. And my mother entered me into art school in the summertime. And I, as I grew up, I did a lot of drawing and a lot of sketching. It was easier to do than writing, which I became very fond of as well. But then after I graduated from high school, I entered myself at Art School Center School of Design in LA, and also Chouinard School of Fine Arts. And so art has always been very important to me, particularly graphic art. I've loved fiddling around with advertising art, graphic art, drawing art, painting, so forth. But
Okay.
art is gets a little fantastical, I guess. And I was more real. More of a realistic artist. I like to draw the things that I saw.
Right. Right. So, what kind of, before you got into tattooing, what kind of things did you do with your art prior? Besides the photography and all that, did you ever do like
When
commercial work?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you again.
Did you ever do commercial work before getting into the tattoo industry?
Yes, I did commercial work before I got into the tattoo industry. I made my money as a graphic artist and as an illustrative artist uh, for advertising agencies. When I uh, when I graduated from the typing pool for the U.S. government, uh, I went to the art department of the advertising agencies, and that's how I got a foot in the door to Muller, Jordan, and Herrick, which is a very famous high-end art advertising agency in New York. And so, yeah, I've always been very comfortable in dealing with art directors and commercial art and um, art.
Very awesome. Yeah. So then, what drove you to switch over to the tattoo side of things and get involved into that?
I'm sorry again.
Well,
What did you
what
say?
drove you? What drove you to get into the tattoo industry and shift over to that?
Well, the people in the tattoo industry, once I met them and realized that they were those people in those cages going across America and had such a great community, and they were so funny and they were so smart and they had such great stories. They're very entertaining. I The people and the personalities of of the people, but also just the emergence, the emergency of tattooing was fundamental to that. That you had no way to erase a mistake. You had to be on the dime all the time. And then the clients, of course, the clients bring me the projects. And so it's a wonderful thing to translate that image in their mind, to an image on their arm or their leg. And so, and there was no going back once you started. It had to be, exactly what they wanted. And the feedback of it was that exactly what they wanted was very fulfilling. And the immediacy of the client responding well to that too was fascinating for me.
Yeah, that's my favorite part
Very
of it.
gratifying.
Yeah, that's my favorite part as well, is just being able to get to help people get their ideas, and bring them to life in a very permanent way for them.
And changing it too so that they really like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It might, it might not be exactly what they wanted, but it gets pretty close. And that's really fun. Yeah.
So, what were like some of the biggest challenges? Because it was a very different time back when you were just starting up into it. What's some of the big challenges that you went through to make it in the industry?
The big challenges that I went through, well, Jesus, I mean, Zeke, told me that no woman should ever tattoo,
Hmm.
that tattooing didn't belong in a woman's hand, um, that we were bad luck. I mean, I was the first girl, quote unquote, to be on a tattoo artist's floor. They didn't have women in tattooing before I came along. I mean, there were some in the sideshow kind of situation, like Pamela Snell in San Diego, who tattooed with her sister. Um, but they were very, very few and far between of women who could prevail and do this work in a man's world. And you had to be pretty tough to do that because there were lots of jokes and lots of hazing and lots of trouble. And so I was a pretty rough girl. I didn't take no for an answer. And in high school, I was in the shop program for the boys because I hated the domestic art, the baking of, pudding and, biscuits, and then learning how to sew an apron. So if you
Yeah.
spilled the biscuits on yourself, you could still, be a girl. I hated that. I flunked those classes, but I got A's in shop. I mean, I loved building things with my hands, hammers and nails, and building the mailboxes and the dog houses and stuff for the in the shop for the boys. So uh, I always got along better with men anyway. Uh, but yeah, it was more fun to be in with sawdust and the smell of paint, and it was just more fun.
It all online.
That sounds good.
All right. So, do you want to continue about where you left off? You were talking about like just kind
It
of.
being
Yes. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was talking about it being underground
Right.
and in New York City, which was a blessing to me because no shop would have me because I was a girl. And so my career really benefited greatly by being underground and tattooing illegally in New York. I was able to get about 2 years of tattooing under my belt by, hold on, oh no, okay. I got you in the New York Times now. Okay, better. Um, so I was underground, and nobody knew that I was tattooing other than just a few random customers that came to our doorstep. So we had a business card called Michael and I opened a tattoo shop after the uh, Museum of American Folk Art show, which was huge in New York. It was the first time that anybody had ever seen contemporary tattoo that way. And we had these incredible photographs by Jerry and by Huck and by Michael Michael Malone and Z Cohen. And so that show was really a landmark presentation of contemporary tattooing. And so people heard about us and word of mouth and from that museum. And so we were able to generate clientele by Michael also walking up and down the streets of New York looking at for somebody who had a visible tattoo and giving them a tattoo business card that we had that I made as a graphic designer called Catfish Tattoo Studio. And he it just said after 6 p.m. It didn't have any hours. It had our address. And so after 6 p.m. every day, we didn't know who was going to show up to get a tattoo. So that's how our business grew. And Michael immediately got the bug. Michael immediately wanted a tattoo. And I was sort of relegated to the hostess, you know, serving cheeseburgers to the people who showed up and also tattooing Bob Hansen, who was a photographer. Um, he's being picked up by, he photographed a lot of the images that he shot during that time. He was picked up by um, Lost Art, I think.
Yellow Beak Press.
Yeah, Yellow Fever. Thank you. Yellow Press. Yellow Beak Press. They have his widow sold his photographs after his death. And so they bought the photographs and they have some of them online now and they're selling them. And so then Ed Hardy, who had a booming business in San Diego, offered Michael a 50% partnership in his studio. Not me, but Michael. But when I asked him why he did that, he said, I knew that he would bring you. And so that began the triangle of desire between Ed Hardy, Michael, and me. I was terribly dedicated to Michael, but I have maybe 400 love letters from Ed Hardy that I'm trying to see how I can publish without them going back to him as original copywriter. I might put them on display in a museum show. I might also just publish them and then take my chances with where they go. But they were pretty intense, and Ed basically fell in love with me and asked Michael to come and be his 50% partner. And so Michael said, I'm going. And I said, well, I don't want to go to San Diego. I used to surf there and I don't like that city. And I'll stay here and I'll operate Catfish Tattoo Studio. I love New York. And he said, no, you're my old lady and you're coming with me. And so at that time, women did what men said. So I said, okay, I'll go with you to San Diego. And I wound up working with Ed at his tattoo shop on San Diego, Columbia Boulevard, Columbus Street. I can't remember the name of it, but oh, sorry.
No, you're good. Don't worry.
There. So I've forgotten the name of his tattoo shop. It was. Would you go get my book, Ed Hardy's Love Letters?
What's that?
It's in there on that shelf underneath the Legends book. It's a red one. It has his name on it. Anyway, I wound up working at Ed's. And, he was very generous with information to me. and he was a big help to the far right, second shelf. And meanwhile, I was making friends with Paul Rogers, and I was carrying on the correspondence thing, and Z. Cohen, Sailor Jerry. It's on the binder, the red binder on the second shelf. Michael, red binder, second shelf. His name is right there. No, the other bookcase. The other bookcase on the other wall. Okay. Um, so Ed likes to say he didn't write me any letters. He didn't know anything about me. This is the binder.
Oh, wow. Must be happy.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's very large.
Yeah. Yeah. They were intense love letters and offering me jobs too. And so I maintained a good friendship with Ed. I don't know where that will go now, but uh, he's never denied his connection to me. Um, but these were intense letters that he wrote. So in San Diego, he he offered a job to both me and Michael, and so I enjoyed working with him, and I enjoyed his friendship very, very much. I love Ed Hardy, but it's taken a nasty turn. But anyway, and at the same time, I was writing with Sailor Jerry, and so and Sailor Jerry was offering me a partnership with him, but because of what happened between Head and he decided that severed his relationship with Ed. So, so now I'm a woman, ether uh, of the tattooing world, and that's when my friendship with Z. Cohen became pretty important. And Zeke was always asking me to run off to Guam with him to open a tattoo shop with him. And so I was at that age a young woman, uh, and I was sort of staggered by the opportunities that were coming to me. I wasn't sleeping with any of them, I want you to know, but they they just saw that I was very talented and that I knew how to run a business and that I knew how to run the tattoo business. And so, and I had gifts to offer that were outside of the norm for tattooing. And so that's how that went. And Zeke, up until the day he died, I was a huge friend to him to try to save him from evil relatives that were trying to steal his collection of Flash. They tried to get his Flash in the hands of uh, Mario Barth or the hands of Bill Funk. You see, I know where all the bodies are buried, and some of the men don't like it, you know, and so, but they like me. So I don't know. It's just been a very colorful, interesting life, uh, and I sit with all this information of all of these guys that I want to share, and I can't because they hold the copyrights to all of it. So I just have to find a way to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to ask a bit about kind of the way you do your artwork. What's like when you're designing a piece or you're trying to make something for a client, what's like the most important aspect of it that you try to focus on?
Well, clarity, first of all, that the image is easy to read, that is the size is proper, the placement's going to be proper, that it's not going to be complicated or too cluttered, and all the aspects of tattooing itself, clean lines, uh, the addition of black so that it's a supportive color. Um, when I started, there were only three colors. There was black, red, yellow, and green. That was it. And I helped uh, find the other colors: reds, oranges, yellows. Um, the safe red actually is what we were trying to find, and that was decided that we should pretend to be sign painters, and so we wrote these letters to the tattoo the sign companies, the sign color painting, and said that we were sign painters and we wanted to find safe, sun safe colors that were durable in the sun and not holding, uh, what was that, mercury. And so we got a hold of touch. We got in touch with Sun Chemical and Frisenti and Sperling, and we got colors that were safe. And then as soon as we found those, Huck Spalding bought them all. And so put them in his collection of colors for sale. But it helped the community at large get safe colors into the tattoos.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And now, there's a big brouhaha about the colors. We sent those colors off to Paul and to Huck and to Sailor Jerry, and they mixed them with their own chemistry for the additives, and then they started selling them in such vast quantities that people found out it was tattooing that they were being used for, and so then they cut us off, and so uh, it's just been everywhere they can try to cut us off because tattooing is a fiercely competitive business,
Right.
and they want to control the taxing. And because we're mavericks, really, we operate underground, and nobody can, control us. And so we wind up kind of cutting our own throats. We don't want to pay taxes. You know, we've never liked paying taxes, and so we've lived underground all the time from day one, and they don't like that. And so now they're trying to stop us by curtailing the sales of safe colors to us, and it's a shame. It's a shame that we have to fight every single day of our lives against legislation and control that should have no part in our business at all. But then, then we don't want to pay taxes, because I mean, there's a way to do that, but it requires some thought and some undercover activities. And, tattooing was always a gangster activity. It was always controlled by gangsters. I mean, people like Brooklyn Blackie, and, you know, uh, Philadelphia Eddie. I mean, uh, they controlled it heavily, like they were mobsters.
Yeah.
And so we try to shy away from exposing that, but it, that's where the colorful stories lie, though. The real great stories lie in the gangster activities of these guys.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah. So it's fun to know those. I can't tell them, unfortunately, unless I write a book and I'm dead. Uh, but yeah, they're very colorful stories, very colorful men.
Very wonderful.
So, so the colors became more legal, more, you know, overt in public's eye. more easy to get a hold of. Now we have people doing them in kitchens. Um, and as long as you have the proper recipe, and as long as you have the proper sources, you don't have any problem with making color in a blender in your kitchen or in the motel room next to the room that you're sleeping in. That's another little trick that people play.
Awesome.
Uh, yeah.
So, do you want to tell us about a little bit about what you're doing right now as well? I know you said you were writing a book.
I'm writing several books. Right now I have Cortez. Michael Cortez is here with me from LA, and we're going to finish up the little itty bitty books, little tiny um, stencils. I introduced the itty bitty stencils a while ago. Um, I was selling Sailor Jerry stencils for a long time, and I found these itty bitty stencils about that big, and I was charging a lot of money for my stencils. And I got so much abuse from that. Excuse me. I got so much abuse from the old timers who would walk down the aisles at a tattoo show and say, "Did you see that woman selling stencils for $300? That woman's crazy." But I sold a lot of stencils for $300. The Sailor Jerry stencils. I saw stencils and I knew that they had value because Sailor Jerry carved them, and because they were hand cut in acetate by him. And so I introduced the stencils as a commodity, and I did very well selling stencils for Sailor Jerry, and introduced them as as Lyle Tuttle says, the new tattoo collectible. Now I want to do the same with the itty bitties, the little tiny, teeny tattoo, because everything's going teeny tiny. I
Right.
can't stand it. I can't stand it. We've got a tattoo shop here in town called Tiny Tats. I mean, if you want a tiny tat, you go. It started with the Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
That's where it started. Going to shops to go get teeny tiny tats for $13 plus a $7 tip. That's not a tattoo.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So we've come up, thank you, Michael, with this idea to find these little teeny tiny tattoo stencils. Watch these explode now, because that's what will happen. And it's Sailor Jerry stencil, hand colored by Shanghai Kate. Now that's a deal.
Oh wow, those are lovely.
Thank you. And that's one by Michael Cortez,
Wow.
who's sitting right next to me. And these can be greeting cards. This can be in a book. You know,
Yeah, those are wonderful. Those are awesome.
so they're nice little presents. They're nice little pieces of art, and it says itty bitty, itty bitty tiny tats. Not tiny tats. I'd get sued for that. But you know,
Yeah.
so but that's the wave of the future. Our teeny tiny tats. So we're doing a book collection for tiny tats.
Very awesome.
That's and I'm also doing my life story, which is very colorful as far as being a little cowgirl. Where's the where's those pictures that I gave? People tell me right now I'm just getting over a stroke, and I'm ill. So I'm, but everybody say, "Oh, Kate, you're so strong to have, both knees replaced, and then you had a stroke. Oh my God, you're so strong." So this is why I'm so strong. This is a picture of me as a cowgirl. That's how I dressed as a child. Uh, this is my heritage, and so I came from Utah pioneers. Uh, they founded Utah. Did you get this, little cowgirl?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And my stepfather. This is my stepfather on the tractor with my little brother asleep in the back.
Oh, can you pull it back a little bit? And then to your right a little bit.
That's my stepfather taking my little brother around in the tractor on our acreage when I was growing up.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And the first house that was built on our land, besides the outbuilding that I lived in, is my playhouse, was this shed. Yeah. And this is the playhouse that I had, and this was the shed. And it really had electricity. And then I helped my stepfather build my house. And this is me on my horse, the horse that I finally got for $50, an Indian pony.
Oh, very
And
cool.
his name was Cinders. Did I show him the cowgirl picture? I did. Okay. So that's where I came from. Real rough and tough childhood.
Yeah, it definitely shapes you.
Yep.
Cool. And then so when are your books coming out, and where can we find them?
Well, you can find them in any bookstore because my book publisher is Schiffer. So it's going to be the Schiffer Publishing Company, and they publish and distribute everywhere. Or you can reach them through me, my website too. They won't be finished being published or actually, they won't be finished. My end of it takes forever. Um, First, that I showed you, I've got a file of Huck Spalding. I've got uh, Paul Rogers. I've got Zico. I don't know how I'm going to publish that one. That's hundreds of letters. Uh, I don't know. I don't know exactly when I'll have these books done. I think the itty bitty books will be the next ones, and then my life story will be the next one. I have a book called Legends, and it's just pictures of all these legends that I've known, and I'm putting it together with the uh, letters, near pirates, as they were.
Very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us here and to tell us a bit just about the history and what you and the story.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime.